Hi, welcome back to the online IELTS course. It's Lolita again, and we're going to do reading. Okay, so it is lesson 5 from your IELTS reading textbook, and the general topic for today is youth. As always, I will list the unit aims for today, so you'll have like a rough outline of what we're going to talk about. The first one is we're going to learn how to identify relevant sections. As you know, reading is so there are 3 passages in total, and you'll be given 60 minutes, all right, total to finish all of these 3 passages. Yeah, it's up to you how you're going to allocate your time. But the main advantage, all right, if you want to make sure that you will do as much as you can, is to practice reading wisely using different techniques, yeah, and like being able to identify the information quickly, okay? So instead of reading, like understanding every single word, sentence by sentence, spending too much time, it's like wasting time, because this is not about how you can read, this is about how you can use the information, extract the main points, the general idea of the like paragraphs of the passages, okay? And in this case, it is really useful, it is really handy to have this skill of being able to identify relevant sections, right? Next is summaries with word lists. I know we did discuss summaries, summary completion task, but this one is an alternative question, okay? Even though the summary is the same, you've got like, okay, we'll discuss the overview, but the only difference is that in this case, you will not have to check the reading passage, to refer back to the reading passage and find the correct answers. You will have to use the given answers from the list, okay? Next is selecting statements. It's also another type of question now it's reading you can come across. And the last is global multiple choice question. Okay, so let's start with identifying relevant sections. Okay, so if you take a look at the second exercise, you're being asked, skim the title of the reading passage. What can you predict about the topic of the reading passage from the title? Okay, so the first thing you will have to do, right, because it won't take much time, yeah, and it might and it will probably give you some extra ideas, yes, some information about the overall passage. You can read the title first. And it sounds like this: excessive demands on young people. By knowing the definition of excessive, right, we know that it is mostly negative, right? Excessive is too much, exaggeration, okay? So it's above moderation, it's above normal, yeah? And we may conclude, okay, that the author thinks that young people are being burdened by too many tasks, okay? So they're pressured nowadays, yeah? So writer's opinion or view on this problem is probably supporting the young people in this case, yeah? All right, and exercise 3 gives you the example of a summary with some missing words and phrases, yeah? So read the summary, which is taken from a summary task with a word list, yeah? So you're not given the word list just yet, okay? But it will be given a bit later. Then answer questions A and B below, yeah? So let's take a look at the summary quickly, just skim it, all right? Pause the video, take your time. So the first question is, which words in the summary will help you scan for the beginning and the end of the relevant section of the text? All right, we know that the summary part is going to be taken from the reading passage, yeah, and it's going to be concentrated in one specific place, so the answers are not going to be scattered over like different paragraphs, yeah? That's why it is advised, okay, to find the key words, key vocabulary, which will help you to identify the beginning and the end of the relevant section. In this case, you might have noticed and you might have underlined the phrase recent report, yeah? So the meaning, the idea is going to be referring to some kind of study, report, yeah, related to science. And the last signaling words, okay, would be studies and work. But again, I mean, I won't stop emphasizing the fact that you do have to think about synonyms. Like, you know, it has to be like an instinctive way of dealing with IELTS reading, right? So like instant response to any kind of key vocabulary, keywords, right? So you see the phrase recent report, which you have to use to navigate the paragraph, right? But this will most probably be given in a different way, right? So what is recent report? Report is the same as study, for example, right? Yes, so recent report, recent study. Studies and work. So study is probably university or the facilities, the institution, right? Where people learn something new. And work could be given as like work environment, work settings, right? So keep it in mind. Once you are done with figuring out the keywords, yeah, then we are going to move on to the question, the big question, okay? Skim the reading passage and decide where the summary begins and ends. Right, if you are not familiar with the passage, right, and if this type of question comes first, right, and you do have to skim the reading passage first, but in this case, you know that you have to scan for specific vocabulary, right? And you have to keep in mind some synonyms and paraphrases, yeah? So please pause the video, start from the beginning, and try to do it on your own, yeah? Recent report, recent study, yeah? And to finish it up, yeah, the end of the summary is going to be talking about studies, work, and so on. Okay, so you should have found the beginning, which is the very first sentence in the first paragraph, right? But not according to a recent study, which claims that young people between the ages of 8 and 18, right? Again, you can see some connection between the reading passage and the summary, mentioning the same information, right? So you can make sure that this is the place where you will start comparing the meanings, the information, yeah? And then paragraph 4, the first sentence of paragraph 4, all this electronic wizardry is supposedly also seriously affecting young people's performance at the university and in the workplace. See? So they are not using exactly the same vocabulary, they're changing it. Okay, so before we start completing, all right, or working with this type of question, yeah, so you have learned how to identify the relevant sections, yeah, but this is just the first step, okay? Let's take a look at the overview of the topic of summaries with word lists, yeah? So this is obvious, you'll be given a short summary with some of the words missing, yeah? And you will have to fill in the gaps with the words given in the list, yeah? But of course, these words from the list are going to be using synonyms of what is given in the reading passage. So it does seem to be more complicated than the regular summaries completion task, right? Because it kind of gives you extra stage of analysis, okay, where you're not only given the passage to find answers, but you have to find the synonyms for the answers, right? And then see if they match, okay, the meanings. So the list of the words will be given, right? And the options in the list, so there are going to be extra options given in the list, meaning there are less gaps in the summary than the possible phrases and words in the word list, okay? Now, the most important part, as always, talking strategy, okay, strategy-wise. Summaries with words, word list, strategy. The first thing is you have to carefully read the question. So the first step is always the same for any kind of IELTS reading task, okay? You have to make sure, do you have to fill in the gaps with words and phrases from the passage, right? In this case, you will be given a word limit, like no more than 2 words or no more than 3 words, yeah? Or there's an alternative way, yeah, to deal with this question. You will be given a word list. So if you see that you're required to fill in the gaps with the given words, right, you have to keep it in mind, yeah? Right, so next step is to skim the summary to get the general idea, right? To get this solid grasp on the general meaning of this summary. Okay, so you might still be confused, okay, by some of the gaps, but some of them could be really obvious, right? So your job is to identify the word type, yeah, in each specific gap, noun, verb, adjective. Maybe it's going to be a date, maybe it's going to be a name, all right? And then you might even figure out some of the answers. All right, so then you can move on to the word list. Find 2 or 3 obvious answers, like relying on your previous analysis of the gaps, yeah? So you're going to pay attention to the words and phrases that collocate well with the sentence in which the phrase or word is missing, okay? So you're talking about like grammatical accuracy if you insert this or that specific option, yeah, from the word list. And then you can also eliminate or exclude some of the options which are inappropriate, okay, or grammatically incorrect. Yeah, so it is not possible to use this specific unit of vocabulary in like some of the gaps. Yeah, so it's easier. It simplifies your life at some point, right? So you can kind of cut some of the answers off, yeah, being left with less options. Okay, next step is to identify the keywords and phrases and think about synonyms, because you will have to refer to these specific keywords and synonyms while scanning for the correct location of the answers, right? So then eventually you're going to scan the passage, yeah, to locate the correct position, right, in the passage. All right, then you look at this section carefully, you read it, yeah, you locate the answers, yeah, but these are not the ultimate answers, remember, because you will have to refer back to the word list, yeah, and see whether they make sense at the end and they bear the same meaning, okay? And of course, you always have to check the grammar part of the overall sentence at the end, even if you think that you have located the correct answer, okay, you identified it, and then you kind of find a synonym in the word list, yeah, you still have to check whether the summary or the missing word or phrase, yeah, makes sense grammatically, whether it is correct. And then you have to repeat it with every single gap. All right, so we continue with summaries with word lists, and exercise 4 asks you to complete the summary in 3 as far as you can without looking at the passage again. Yeah, so we're not going to look at the passage. To what extent is it possible to predict the meaning of the missing words in the summary without reading the passage? That's a good question. Okay, so here you are given the word list and the summary. Yeah, so the only thing you can do is to quickly analyze every gap and see whether it is obvious, whether it is like crystal clear, what kind of vocabulary or what kind of word type is going to go into the gap, okay? So by reading the first one, you will see the word wasting, something missing of time by multitasking. Bears negative connotation, which means that we are talking about wasting some kind of amount of time, right? So you will have to pay attention to the word list referring to this idea, yeah? The next is, in fact, they are spending as much as 50% longer than if they did the same tasks. So in the first sentence, they mention multitasking. You should know by now that multitasking it means doing different, like multiple things at the same time, right? So instead of focusing on one thing, you spread the attention, right? You scatter your attention over different tasks. Yeah. So in this case, probably they are referring to the opposite of multitasking. Yeah. Okay. So 3, 4, 5, and 6 are going to be nouns. Yeah. In this case, you're able to only identify the word type. Yeah. So it's not a verb, it's not an adjective, it's a noun. And the last one is also apparently having a on young people's studies and work. So we know that by reading the summary, yeah, like drawing some conclusions, electronic gadgets are considered to be negative, like having negative effect on young people, right? Like the overall idea. So probably this is going to refer to something negative. Right, so now you've got all the parts of IELTS reading summaries with word lists task, yeah? You've got the summary, you've got the word list, and you've got the passage, yeah? And you have to complete the summary using items A to M from the word list below. We've done quite some work, like we've located the relevant section, we've tried to predict some of the answers which are being obvious, right? So now you just have to finally complete this task, okay? So follow the strategy, right? Now you have to pay attention to the keywords, and compare the information. Read the first paragraph and see how much information is given there, Try to find the answer for the first question, for the first missing word, okay, in the summary. All right, so if you started reading like from the very beginning, but not according to a recent study which claims that young people between the ages of 8 and 18, this is the age group we're interested in because this is the same age group given in the summary, of the so-called Generation M, are spending a considerable amount of their time in fruitless efforts as they multitask. All right, so remember there was something about wasting time, and in this case, it is also referred to the fact that they spend a considerable spend as the same as waste, but spend is not negative, okay? It could be both negative and positive compared to the word wasting, okay? But in the passage, there is some extra information provided, okay, to kind of decide what kind of meaning is being instilled into this sentence or paragraph. Okay, so spending a considerable amount of their time in fruitless efforts, okay, as they multitask. So we know what is like fruitful means giving some benefits as a result, right? But when you do something and it's fruitless, it means that there is nothing, so it doesn't pay off at all, okay? No advantages. So fruitless efforts, something you do in vain, which does not bring any positive results, right? So it means that in this case, they waste their time, And we do have to pay attention to the amount of time, right? In this case, it is considerable amount. What is considerable? We know that considerable is a synonym for significant, okay, or vast amount of time. So you do have to go back and find some appropriate options. Hopefully there will be just one, okay? Most definitely you will find the correct one. It is option L, significant amount, okay? Again, before finalizing this gap, okay, please go back and check the summary if it makes sense grammatically. According to a recent report, young people are aged 8 to 18 are wasting significant amounts of time by multitasking. Yes, great, sounds great. It's correct from the grammar point, okay? And it has the same meaning with the reading passage. Okay, the first one is done. Okay, you're lucky enough to spot some like the following keywords, okay, to continue reading. And the second sentence, in fact, they are spending as much as 50%. 50 is exactly a half, right? Longer than if they did the same tasks, something. Okay, the opposite of multitasking. You might know by now, or you might have come up with your own answer, like what is the opposite of multitasking. If you're not sure yet, go back to the reading passage. Okay, so if you continue reading, you will see it argues that in fact these young people are frittering away as much as half of their time, okay, 50%. Frittering is another great word to describe the action of wasting something. Like this one, frittering as much as negative is wasting. Okay, so these are synonyms. Again, as they would if they performed the very same tasks, one after the other. Okay, yes, makes sense. Multitasking, it's like different tasks at the same time. So if you do the opposite, you do one task after another, okay? So you don't mix it up, yeah? Okay, go back to the options. See whether there is anything related to some kind of ordering or sequencing, yeah? And of course, this is option A, in sequence. So let's check it again. They are spending as much as 50% longer than if they did the same tasks in sequence, meaning one by one, in order, okay? Okay, I hope the process is clear of how to approach this kind of task, okay? So as you move on through the summary, you will do the 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 options on your own, right? just pay attention to the keywords. Yeah, think about synonyms, and all right, and always check your answers. Okay, so pause the video, finish it up, check the answers. We have completed the first two parts of today's lesson, identifying like relevant sections and then dealing with summaries with word lists. Now we're moving on to the selecting statement, the overview. So your task is to choose the correct option from the list of words, information, or names. Yeah. So selecting statements, or like you'll have to choose the correct statement out of the list given to you. Okay. Right. So this is quite different from the multiple choice questions, because if you can picture what is multiple choice, yeah, if you're not sure, please Google it. Okay. You will see that it has different questions, and for each specific separate question, you will be given 3 or 4 multiple answers, right? Multiple choices, yeah? And in this case, right, on the other hand, the question or the questions will be related to only one long list of possible options, right? So it is quite different, but at the same time, like, you will have to choose more than one correct answer from the list given, okay? Okay, so we're going to strategize your next moves as usual. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is read the question carefully. Okay, I will repeat it again and again. So how many options from the list you have to choose? This is the key, all right? So it will be given, it will be stated in the question whether you have to choose 2, 3, or 4 options, right? And then you have to read through the list and think of any synonyms or paraphrases. Yeah, that's correct. So do analyze every given statement, answer word, okay? If there is anything you can, add up, like synonym or paraphrase, something of this. Okay, next you read the question or questions and you identify the keywords. Yeah, so what is being asked or what is being required from you? What you have to do, right? This is very important. Think of the synonyms as well. So once you have located the keywords, yeah, you can scan the passage for to find the correct location, yeah, in the passage. So the answers usually come in order. This is very, that's a great news. Okay, so you will not have to be lost. You may structure your moves according to the questions, right? So the information is going to be given in order. Then you read this, the location of the correct answer carefully. You identify the correct one, yeah, and you make your final decision. So let's take a look at the actual question. Okay, so selecting statements. So we're going to take a look at the real question, right? Selecting statements. Okay, exercise 8 and exercise 9. Yeah, so exercise 8, statements A to G are taken from selecting statements task. Skim the statements and answer questions A to C. So always, okay, start by skimming the statements. So to get the general idea what they are talking about. Okay, so pause the video. Okay, so if you have done the skimming part, the first question is, which part of the passage do you think the answers are in? Yeah, basically, this is logical that if the summary part is being done and it's been from the very first paragraph up to the first sentence of the 4th paragraph, probably the continuation, right, meaning the rest of the paragraph 4 till the end, could be considered containing this information, yeah? Because nothing that is being mentioned in the statements has been given in the part with the summary, yeah, the first paragraphs. Okay, just using some common sense here. Which statements can you predict to be true? Well, you might be a bit overwhelmed and confused by the amount of requirements, right? The amount of number of steps you have to go through before finally deciding on the correct answer, yeah? But please don't be overstressed, because it's not something that has to take too much of your time, yeah? It's just some of the it's not tricks, it's just the techniques to make the completion of the task easier, yeah? So if you skimmed the statements, yeah, you could have divided those in different categories, right? So basically there are three categories. Okay, so options A and D are being referred to the student's viewpoint, okay, opinion, yeah. So it goes like this. According to students, electronic gadgets are now an inevitable part of the university landscape. So this is like students' opinion. And D, most young people see no problems related to using electronic gadgets. Okay, so both of these options are being supported by students. Next, we're going to talk about academics, like second group of opinions, yeah? So statement B, C, and E are referred to academic part, like those people who conduct research, they like write articles, produce some reports, okay, so it is scientific. And the last is from the employer's point of view. Those are F and G, okay? So this is how you're going to divide the information. So if we divide this into three, we can refer to each part as being reliable and supported by the specific group, okay? The next question, which words can you use to scan, okay? Can you use electronic gadgets? Why not? So let's do it one by one. First of all, which words you can scan for. Starting for the first sentence, probably you will use electronic gadgets, inevitable part in the university landscape, okay? Next, academics, because you need to find the sentence or the paragraph in which academics state their opinion or they provide their findings on specific topics, right? C, okay, B and C, academics, multitasking, electronic gadgets again, acquisition of study skills, so something about acquiring knowledge, right? So acquire means to get, yeah. Next, academics and writing and study skills. In this case, they accentuate the part of this communication process which requires writing and studying, okay? All right, so D, young people, no problems using electronic gadgets, right? So in this case, they talk favorably about electronic gadgets. Young people, not academics. Computer use at school, so computers within school settings, university settings. Okay, from the academics point of view. Next, employers, electronic gadgets, capacity to perform in the work environment, right? But in this case, it affects the capacity, so the meaning is negative. You'll have to find the same type of information. It's not just about affecting, yeah, it's about having negative effect on the work performance. Yeah, and the last one again, employers, overuse of computers, using it too much, too often, definitely job prospects later in life. So it's about the future and negative effects of the electronic gadgets, okay, usage. All right, so you should do it quickly, yeah? And then you have to answer the question, can you use electronic gadgets as the keyword to scan? Yes, you can, but this is going to be repeated over and over again, so you cannot rely only on this specific key phrase, all right? You have to identify the same way as I did just now, other key vocabulary units, yeah, definitely some paraphrases, synonyms, right? And then only refer back to the passage. Exercise 9, using your predictions in A to help you choose the 3 statements to answer the selecting statements task below. Okay, so the list below gives some opinions about electronic gadgetry. See some synonyms, gadgetry. Which 3 options are mentioned by the writer of the text? Okay, so the writer should have mentioned only 3 out of 7 options. 4 are going to be extra. That's why you should remember that we have identified the 3 groups of like people, yeah, having different views, like students themselves, academics, and employers. Probably there will be one correct answer taken from each group. Okay, so if you have skimmed the passage, right, you might have a rough idea of what, for example, academics think about electronic gadgetry, right? And they do possess this kind of opinion, which is quite negative, right? That's why option B seems like being the best one out of like 3 given, like B, C, and E, okay? So why can't we use C? Because it gives the academic skills students are offered help with their writing and study skills. But if you pay attention to the passage, you will see that this is the very opposite. Okay, so this information contradicts the reading passage that is given to you. Okay, computer use at school fails to prepare students for academic life according to academics. Okay, this is also inappropriate. But B, academics feel multitasking with electronic gadgets affects children's subsequent acquisition of study skills. Yes, you will be able to locate to find the same information, meaning it will have the same idea, all right? So this has been mentioned. Option B has been mentioned by the writer in the passage, okay? Please finish up the rest, okay? You have to choose 2 more statements from the list, okay? Total 3, we have identified 1, which is B, right? So please finish it and check your answers. Global multiple choice question, okay? Overview. An IELTS reading global multiple choice question tests your understanding of the general, of the oral meaning of the reading passage, of the theme of the passage, and most likely, as it is global multiple choice question, it will refer to the conclusion of the main idea, okay? And we know that conclusions come up lost in the whole reading text, right? So we'll talk about this. Right, so you will be given 4 options and you will be asked to choose just one, the most appropriate one option, okay? Like the main idea or the summary of, or the appropriate title, yeah? So you will have to choose the one which best summarize the overall idea or something that you're being asked to answer, okay? Like the question. Right, so how to differentiate the multiple, like the regular multiple choice and the global multiple choice question, right? So global multiple choice question will be given separately, all right? Okay, so a single separate question. There's only one such question in a passage, whereas other multiple choice questions come in groups, right? So normal multiple choice questions they consist of various questions, and under each question there will be some of the options, right? Multiple choice. But the global multiple choice question is always one, okay, and is presented separately, okay? So how do you approach this type of task? The strategy: read the question carefully, as usual, underlining keywords in the question, think about the synonyms that might appear in the text. Yes, read the question, yeah, underline the keywords in the question. Maybe there is something like qualifying words, right? Or okay, we'll see from the example, using the example, and it will be clear for you, okay, how to deal with this one. Okay, so then see the options. Yeah, you'll be given 4 options. Identify the keywords. Try to compare and contrast the keywords, between the options, between the statements, what is the difference, right? Then predict the correct answer by scheming. I mean, if it comes at the end, right, this kind of question, you should have skimmed the passage. You should have done some kind of reading of the passage already by the time you are reading this global multiple choice question, right? So you might have some general idea, yeah, and you will probably be able to predict the answer, okay? So next you have to skim the passage, and usually the last paragraph is the one which will consist the final, the summary of the overall theme, the idea, conclusion of the passage, of the reading passage, okay? And so in academic texts, and even in your IELTS writing task 2, the essay, you always have to provide a conclusion. And conclusion consists of everything, of all the key points mentioned in the paragraphs above, right? Which means that you may just read the conclusion and grasp the general idea of what was given in the previous paragraphs, okay? That's why global multiple choice questions asking about writer's opinion or overall idea of the passage are going to be given at the very last paragraph, okay? So you have to read this part carefully, right? Don't just jump into the conclusion part without having any basis for referring to this specific part. what I mean by saying this is that you do have to refer to the keywords in the question, okay? So make sure this is the correct location of the answer you're looking for. And the last piece of advice, is not only analyze why this option is correct and you're going to choose this option, but also think about the reasons why other options are incorrect, okay? So you do have to provide some justification for your answer. Exercise 10 is the last one. The question below is a global multiple choice question. Read the question and then answer. So many questions, okay? A to C. All right, choose the correct letter. Choose the correct letter, A, B, C, or D. The writer concludes that. So if you pay attention to the questions A, B, and C, the first asks, look at the stem of the multiple choice question. Stem is like the core of the question, okay? Where the main meaning is being hidden, yeah? What does it tell you about the location of the answer? So in this case, the stem is the word concludes. By referring to this word, you will know that you have to pay attention to the last paragraph, as I have said already, okay? Next, what does the title of the passage tell you about the writer's opinion? Remember we talked about the title, we did analyze it. So excessive demands on young people. Excessive implies the idea of negativity, the fact that young people are being pressured by the outside world and they're being given too much tasks, too much responsibility, all right, nowadays. So the author supports young people, okay, in this view. And which alternatives can you eliminate? So if you have skimmed the options, right, you could have noticed that option A has already been mentioned in the passage. So most definitely you will not see it coming up again in the conclusion part. Yeah, so the use of electronic gadgets at school is affecting academic study. Yeah, so this is something that has been provided already in the previous paragraphs. So you can just skip it, right? Using your answers in 10, answer the global multiple choice question. The last one, it's exercise 11. Yeah, so please read the last paragraph, pause the video, try to find the correct answer, okay? And analyze why other options are not relevant, okay? Okay, if you read the second part of the conclusion, praise rather than criticism is due in respect of the way today's youth are able to cope despite what the older generation throw at them. The author concludes that more is required of young people today and they cope well in the circumstances, even though older generation throws too much pressure at young people, younger generation, they still manage to overcome this pressure, okay? They still manage to deal with this, to cope with are synonyms, okay? So this is the wrapping up of the whole reading passage, okay? The final idea of the author, of the writer, saying that yes, this is, it does take place, it is true, okay? But young people are still capable of dealing with it, right? And then, yes, you do have to provide some justification and some reasons why you did not choose option A, C, and D, okay? But that is pretty much it about doing the global multiple choice question, all right? So we did discuss a lot of things, like 4 sections for today. Relevant sections, summaries with word lists, then selecting statements, and the last one is global multiple choice question, right? I hope you have done very few mistakes, right? While doing your own, reading, right? Answering the questions. Please finish everything up if you haven't finished, like some of the parts. Yeah, do the practice, the reading passage, which is given, presented for you to practice the skills you have acquired from today's lesson, yeah? And thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.